All right, guys, welcome back to Millennialistic.
Episode 15.
Episode 15. I'm your host, Brian.
And it's Xavier.
And with us, as always, is our producer behind the boards, DJ. Gunshot sound effects.
Insert.
Bam, bam, bam. Dude, we just got done with our guest for this week, Mr. Nick Bush. He's a local comic here in the Nashville area, has been touring a lot. Dude, that was a really fucking good
I
interview.
thoroughly enjoyed that. I can't wait for everybody to hear that. He's great.
Dude, I had so much fun. It was cool. Would love getting like local comics on because I want people to stay in tune with kind of what's going on, and with everything shut down right now, it's good people know where to go for entertainment. So we did talk a little bit about, and you saw this on the Instagram live TV. Make sure you have your notifications on Instagram set to where you get a notification when we go live so you can tune in there.
Yeah.
Because if you do have that, you would have seen Nick talking about they have postponed their Smoking Joke show. We've been telling you guys July 13th on here. It's actually going to be next Monday, the 20th.
Monday after next, yes.
Yep, it's an outdoor venue, undisclosed. Nick's going to have more information, which we will be sharing on our platforms here for you guys. We'll be in Murfreesboro, same time, I believe. Help me out, guys. He said doors will open at 7:30.
Yes, and it'll start at 8.
Show starts about 8:30, somewhere in there. So we'll have ticket information that we'll post online with this episode, or like I said, as soon as we get it from those guys. If you have any questions, definitely let us know. But yeah, man, fun episode. We talked about just kind of Nick's come up in comedy, and it's fun to hear him talk about just kind of the grind he's been on for the last 4 years.
His influences and how we grew up and what made him get into stand up.
Yeah, dude, and it's like that's what I love about him, dude. Is he's doing it the right way. Like he's grinding out, he's paying his dues, and man, I'm just really confident if he sticks with it, he's gonna be fun. So we talked about the George Floyd situation a little bit. It's fun to hear his perspective. He's done actively participated in some of the protests here in Nashville, so it's cool to get his perspective on that. So make sure you guys tune in for that. Some quick announcements that we have. Make sure you tune in next week. We have local hip-hop R&B producer Mr. Langston Hughes on the podcast.
Album's very nice.
New album.
Really enjoyed that.
That's actually up on Apple Music, Spotify, pretty much wherever you get his stuff. I believe it's his first solo project he put out. It's called Shades of Hues, Hues, Shades of Hues. So make sure to look that up again on Apple, Spotify, pretty much wherever you get your music from. The end of the month we have Miss Kiana on. She's a local skit comedian. She does hilarious skits.
That should
on
be
Instagram,
interesting too. First person you had on who does skits, and I love skit comedy. So
follow her on Instagram at Hilarious Key. She has some of the funniest short skits. Her and her friends we're actually watching some of them here in the studio last week, I think, and just rolling on the floor laughing, dude. It's honestly really good stuff. So we're excited to have her on. Subscribe and rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, please. That really helps out the show a lot. Follow us and listen to us on Spotify. We are also on Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and pretty much TuneIn Alexa app. Should have this video up on YouTube hopefully tomorrow.
Yeah, it takes a little minute to get on there, but yes, tomorrow is the plan.
But this episode, Sunday afternoon, should be live for you guys tomorrow at 7 a.m. So for your commute into work, you guys should enjoy that. But am I missing anything, guys? Is there anything?
Nope.
Dude, you've been quiet today. Any words of wisdom for our listeners out there? Yo, shout out to Dublin, Ireland, by the way. We see you people. We see you out there, Dublin. Listen to our shit.
I fixed it.
You fixed it?
I fixed it.
He fixed Ireland?
Dude, we had some microphone issues.
Oh, no.
DJ, being the world-class podcast producer he is, fixed all of our shit. So we got 4 mics up here. So hopefully this is the best audio quality episode maybe the listeners have heard yet. So.
They just wait.
But again, we hope you guys. We hope you guys enjoyed listening to this episode. We had so much fun. Again, big shout out and thank you to Mr. Nick Bush.
Thank you so much, man,
for coming on. Dude, such a fun episode. Go and like him on Instagram and Twitter, Nick X Bush. We'll have his handles on the
Put some links in there for you guys to follow.
But yeah, dude, fucking thanks for listening. We love you guys and enjoy the episode.
Much love.
right, and we're back. Episode 15 of Millennialistic. We got our guest, Mr. Nick Bush, in the house.
What is going on?
What's up, Nick? What's
good,
up,
man?
Dude,
feeling good.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Nick's we kind of talked about in the intro already. He's a local comic. Has been doing. How long you been doing stand up in the greater Nashville area for, man?
Man, I can't believe it's been almost 4 years.
Damn, 4 years.
Yeah.
So you started 2016?
2016, yeah, so like late summer 2016.
Okay. What was it that motivated you to kind of want to get into it?
Well, it was interesting. I was in a poetry class at MTSU, like in a grad course, and when I started reading those poems in class, and people were laughing. So I went to a couple poetry readings, and I got some more laughs. And so I was like, let me just keep it going.
Yeah,
take it to the next level. Yeah.
Yes, I did some stand up. I went to NashvilleStandUp.com. I saw that there was an open mic, showed up to it, and I did. In my mind, well at the time, but I imagine if I could see that video now, I probably would think it wasn't very good. But I got laughs, and like people have talked about this before. I know Jerry Seinfeld's talked about it, Bill Burr. But that drive home after you first do comedy for the first, you like finally do it. It's like the best drive home ever.
Oh yeah.
And so
that adrenaline rush, kind of like I took a big step.
Yeah, and
cool.
the fact that it went well. In my mind, you know, again, I would love to see that, but it was when that drive home, I was like, I got to do it again.
Yeah, it's addicting.
It really is, yeah. And you get on stage, and especially when you've been kind of carrying it with you all day, like how's this show gonna go? And then when you walk off stage, you put the mic back in the stand, and you know you did well. And, there's always room for improvement, but you hit a lot of the notes you wanted to hit, and the crowds, I mean, it's really satisfying.
You got some laughs, so that's always a good sign.
Yeah.
I mean, like, even though, like, you've improved probably so much over the past 4 years, but your first time ever going and you actually got laughs, it's always, I feel like, a really good thing, because especially laughs out loud, because people will laugh at jokes, but not actually be real loud. And it like kind of seems like somebody's bombing sometimes, but you're like, oh, their material's funny. It just I'm like, holy shit, laugh out loud funny.
Yeah.
But you gotta laugh out loud. That's good your first time.
Yeah, no, I think that really it was really encouraging, and then also
cool.
I think it does say something about your ability to move forward if you do get laughs the first time. But I'm sure it's hit and miss. I'm sure there are very successful comics who bombed terribly their first time.
Every single one of them will say that. Yeah.
And then there are probably some who did better than. Did fairly well their first time. So it's, Well,
I would say, too, I find it very common with guys' first time. It's like a lot of guys go up and tell, like, a funny story.
Yeah.
That, like, they usually know is going to get some laughs because, like, they've told that story to buddies before. Yeah. But then it's the process of writing jokes and setup and punchline. Like, that's the tricky part in coming out with the original material.
Yes, yeah.
So you say you kind of got into it like around like grad school, college. Where'd you go to your undergraduate?
I did my undergrad at UT Martin in West Tennessee, and then I did my grad school at MTSU.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
and do you teach still?
I still teach over at Motlow State. Still teaching English.
That's like your full-time comedy's because you Xavier was in your class.
Yeah. I remember when
it was every day.
That was a while ago. I don't remember what year it was, but it was a good class though. I definitely one class I remember because a lot of English classes are kind of the same, and you like put in like, hey, we're gonna do something a little bit different. I was like, man, like okay, like you really teach to be teaching, like.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Definitely instills some stuff in me for sure. Like, all right, this is what English class is supposed to be like.
That's what's up. Okay, good.
I appreciate it.
Because I feel like sometimes. Like, I want students to feel like they're at a university, even, if it's a community college, maybe. I think sometimes it's easy to associate that more with high school.
Yes.
And so I definitely want that feeling. And, and I don't think I'm the only one who does that.
Oh,
but,
yeah, for sure.
But, that's kind of what I shoot for.
It was very thought-provoking. I liked it. It was, like, outside the box, not just like, all right, answer these questions, cool. Next thing, it's like, what do you guys think? You encouraged conversation and the communication about subjects like... What would you do if you're in this person's state of mind, or what would you do if you were this character? And I really like that a lot because.
So you were in a literature course.
Yes. Okay. I think it was. Did you teach world? Was it world literature?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Was Don Quixote one of the
No, we didn't do Don Quixote.
No. Okay.
Yeah, but I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember if it was American or World.
Yeah,
lit,
it was World. I think it was. I think it was World.
Yeah, that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Because so you've been doing that, and then just kind of stand up on the side, outside of that, whenever you have time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any kids or anything, so my schedule is kind of wide open. And you just hit the open mics during the week. You can get booked on a show on the weekend, or even booked on a show during the week. Then you go to those shows. It's since everything is, I don't say everything, but a lot of things are local. It's not that difficult.
Yeah,
If I was like a road comic and I was traveling to Pittsburgh every weekend or every other weekend or something like that, it'd probably be a little bit more challenging. But it hasn't been that hard.
Yeah, staying here. And actually, I think that's something I meant to ask you about a little bit later. But have you ever gone on the road before?
Oh yeah. I did a show with Brad Sativa in Iowa.
Yeah, where in Iowa?
It was at this mansion in Iowa, and let's see, I'm blanking on the name.
I went
right
to school
now.
there. Like a lot of my family's from that area. So
I saw the Iowa Hawkeyes, the banner when I came in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's man, I'm gonna look it up. But I went there. I did. I've done a couple of shows in Alabama,
Huntsville area.
Huntsville and Birmingham, and did some Kentucky shows.
Okay.
Too. So I'd say those are the main states. I've done open mics like on vacation. So I went. Me and my girlfriend went to Texas about a year ago. Went to Austin, and I did an open mic there. But that's not on the road. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
but that's good exposure. I mean, shit. If you're there, you might as well do it. You know what I mean?
that's how I feel. Yeah, and I would have felt bad if I didn't do it.
Like a missed opportunity. Like, man, I had an opportunity to do that down there.
Yeah.
Austin's cool shit too. I went with the band down there to ACL.
Oh really?
Yeah.
We went to South by Southwest, and it was nice. I got to admit, it was.
Austin's a good, pretty good hotbed for comedy. Yeah,
that's what I heard, and I kind of got that vibe from being at the mic. I mean, it wasn't any better or worse than Nashville in terms of joke quality and everything with the comics, but I could see it being. I think places that have good comedy, there's a certain level of energy that's at an open mic, even if everyone is kind of not doing well, and you definitely got that. Like I went to Asheville in North Carolina, and I got the sense that it wasn't a good comedy scene. It wasn't like there aren't good comics there, but there's not an energy and an opportunity.
Strong, consistent kind of thing like it is here. I feel
right, like you'd have to leave Asheville, I think, to get better.
Oh yeah.
Whereas in Nashville, and I imagine Austin's the same way, you can spend your first 3 or 4 years really honing your craft before you go somewhere else. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because I think, really, for a lot of entertainers, I guess unless you're in the music industry here in Nashville, you do get to that point where it's like if you want to go to that next step, you're going to LA, Chicago, New York, maybe Atlanta. Where do you think you would, that was actually one of my questions too, where do you think you would go? Okay, Netflix wants to do a special, and they told you they want you to do a pilot for a sitcom, and what's the major city hub that you would want to end up in? Or would you want to stay here in Nashville?
I think if I could stay here in the Nashville area, that'd be great. But LA would be the major city if we're talking, because my sister lives out there. She and her husband live out there, and
nice.
I've been there. I've done some mics there, and I have some friends who've moved out there too. So. And I think I would enjoy LA more than New York or Chicago. I'm not really a cold weather guy.
No,
me neither.
That's how I feel.
Done. It's either I've been to LA a few times for sure, but I feel you.
Yes. Now Atlanta, I think.
I love Atlanta.
I'd say I think Atlanta would be good, especially their comedy scene is definitely the top one in the South.
Yeah, a lot of guys from Atlanta come. You do a lot of shows on your showcases with guys from Atlanta.
Yeah, we will hit up guys from the Atlanta, Chattanooga area, and the Atlanta folks especially, they always kill. And just having conversations with them, they just talk about how competitive it is.
Oh yeah.
We had this guy on the Smokes and Jokes from Atlanta, Pierre Garçon, and he's murdered every time I see him, and then he's like, I'll show up in Atlanta sometimes, and they won't even get me on stage
Jeez.
because there's so many people ahead of me that got there before me that deserve it
Signed
just
up
as much as
before,
I do. You know, it's
yeah.
not like a, yeah. So, yeah, it's just I think that with Atlanta, there's and I imagine Chicago has a lot of this where it's
yeah.
just so competitive, and everyone's kind of packed in a small space that. You know, you really have to bring it every night.
Oh yeah, so many people, like in general.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When there's 4 million people you're competing against.
Yeah, it's so much more. But see, I think
Yeah.
LA is so sprawled out.
There's so many different comedy
you
clubs
cannot-
there though.
You know
So
what you're talking about, Atlanta?
no, LA.
LA, yeah.
They're like I feel like probably there, and from what I hear from some comedians, like Boston Boston and New York and LA are like the hotbeds for stand-up comedy scene.
I'd agree with that. I think that like those spots, I've seen a couple people from New York, not a whole lot, but you can tell like there's a rhythm and a crispness,
Oh, yeah.
and you're like, oh, this person does several mics every night. Like
yeah.
it's, you know, like you know, in the Nashville area, if you can get 4 to 5 in a week, you're doing well.
Yeah.
I think in New York it's probably more like 4 to 5 a night.
It's just
So,
like, all right, I'm out.
yeah.
Next play,
Going on to the next
showcase.
Yeah.
So how many shows would you say? How many times are you getting up a week at the moment? Well, I guess with everything closed down, it's kind of hard to tell. Yeah.
Yeah, with everything how it is now, I haven't done any comedy the last 2 weeks. I've written,
Yeah.
I've practiced at home, but just in getting up in front of people the last 2 weeks, none. There was a couple of spots that reopened, and I would do about once a week, but then those spots kind of closed back up. So
How about like like back in January, February? How often were you getting up?
I'd say I'd average about 4 to 5,
4 or 5
a week.
That's so
Yeah.
much too. Like people don't
Yeah.
realize like.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you're only up on stage for, what do you do at open mics, 10, 15 minutes?
Oh
maybe?
no! At open mic
Oh.
it's 4 to 5.
Oh, yeah.
4 to 5, yeah.
But it's like, you drive there, like
Yeah.
you end up hanging out for 2.5, 3 hours, and when that's 4 or 5 nights, like people don't understand, like when you're to the level where you're at, like it's a legit, this is your part-time job, like it's a time commitment.
It really is. I think that's the one thing that I think people don't factor in when it comes to comedy, because you're like, all right, I'm gonna get up there, I'm gonna tell some jokes. Your biggest fear when you start out is what if there's a heckler, and the thing that makes people quit comedy isn't the heckling, it's the grind.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you hardly ever really get heckled, but just this idea of going on stage and you don't really want to because you're tired and you just got off work and
You gotta
you're
push
behind
through
on all
that.
this stuff. That's what
Yeah.
I think makes comedy hard consistently.
It's keeping it a priority when life happens.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, is the guys that make it are the guys that don't make excuses. They make it a priority. They go get up on stage. Everybody's got shit going on. Everybody
Yeah.
has bad things that happen to
Dude,
them. I think the
especially
guys
with
that
like
make it.
kids too, and try to do that too.
Yeah.
There's people who do that too, and that's like, man, you got a hole in their life, and you're putting hours a week into something else. It's like not even like something you have to do, but it's a passion. And you have a significant other that's like, hey, go for it. That's really cool. But I imagine that being a lot.
That's an interesting thing because I think there's a couple of comics with kids. Some of them are married, some of them aren't.
Yeah.
And the married ones, you're like, oh, the spouse is likely taking care of them.
Yeah.
But the unmarried ones, I wonder how they do it as often as they do it. I mean, I imagine they probably have family or something close by that they can drop the kids
Yeah.
off to. But I do wonder, like, how could someone do comedy well with kids? Because it's so hard without
Just
kids.
sit the kid at the bar like, hey, give me
Yeah,
Yeah, just-
that's a good point. Then you got comedies that
some apple
are,
juice shots to be alright.
Right.
you got the comics that are single parents. You know what I mean?
That's
It's
the
like,
thing, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That shit's crazy. So, have you always been a fan of stand-up, or like when did you grow up watching comics, or?
Yeah, I've always loved stand up, and it's so funny now because now I hardly watch it. Like, like YouTube videos, Netflix specials on all the time. Like, when I was a teenager, I would have loved this. Like,
Oh yeah.
but now it's like I'm just around it so often that after about 10 minutes of stand up, of watching one person, I'm so used to someone else coming on stage that like it's hard for me to just sit down and watch a whole special.
When you get home, you're like, I live this life. I want to watch this too.
No, but sometimes you almost have to not force yourself through it, but force yourself to get started. Once you get started watching something, You know, it's like going for a jog. Like once
Yeah.
you get
Yeah.
going, you're like, all right, I'm in the rhythm. And so sometimes it's about forcing myself to watch some of the newer specials so that I know it's still making people laugh.
Yeah.
It's all that-
You know where that line's at, I feel like. When you see what the top guys, like their, as far as their content goes, when you can see, like we were talking about last episode, just watch Jim Jeffries' episode,
Yeah.
right? And it's not clean, but it's cleaner than his shit from 10 years ago.
I haven't
Right,
watched
right.
it yet, but
So, and I
heard
think
good things.
that kind of helps give everyone else perspective of like, okay, if this is what the top guy, like, if they're not talking about it and they're conscious about it, like, you probably should be too at your open mics. Like, maybe you can push it a little bit further, but like, I feel like that helps you kind of gauge like where that line's at. If that makes
Well,
sense.
I know what you're saying. Like I
It
think,
depends.
yeah, because I think when you're not famous, almost no one really cares what you
Yeah.
say.
That's what we said about this podcast.
Right, yeah,
We're like, you can't say that on a podcast. I'm like, 14 people listen to it.
Right, exactly, yeah,
Hey.
that's
They're
pretty
all my friends. So.
14's pretty good. When I was trying to do some podcasts a couple years ago, and I'd lucky if I got 4. And
Yeah,
so
it's hard. It's
so
hard,
14 is like,
No, and that's why we really appreciate everybody that does listen
Yeah.
and supports and everything. Because I mean, we get it. Nobody wants to hear us. That's why we try to find cool guests like you, so
Oh,
that
yeah,
people
that's
can
what's-
finally be interested
that's
in what
what's
we're
up.
saying.
well, one thing I want to go back to with the growing up watching stand up.
Yeah.
As a kid, some of like my favorite moments growing up was like my family's from Chattanooga. Me and like my sister and my parents, we're the only ones in my family that live in the Nashville area.
Yeah.
And so we would visit Chattanooga, and some of my funnest memories from being a kid was watching Def Comedy Jam at my grandparents'
Oh,
house, and all the
dude.
cousins were there.
Ah, dude.
And like getting a lot of the jokes, but there are certain jokes that you didn't get. But just
Right.
it was just so much fun, and I remember just watching Sinbad's HBO special,
Yeah.
and like couldn't breathe, like the hardest I've ever laughed in my life, and it was just
Dude.
watching stand up. And so, I mean, I never would have like. I always thought of that's just something people in like New York and LA do. It never occurred to me that I would ever actually do it.
Yeah, you can do it.
But I definitely loved watching it growing up.
Those are still so good. Like Martin Lawrence, like hosting it, and like seeing like Eddie Griffin go up there, and like
Well, it's funny. So I listened to a podcast the other day with Ron White on it, and he was talking
Yeah.
about the Redneck Comedy Tour that they
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And he talked about how Def Jam like created that platform for. That's what sparked Jeff Foxworthy to do that. Is they're like, well, these guys had really good success. You know, in that demographic, and they're like, we think we can appeal to this demographic doing the same thing. So it really kind of, and now you see it today with like Netflix special. You saw like Tiffany Haddish had a whole special with like 4 or 5 African American female comics. Joe Coy just did the same thing, a special with a bunch of Filipino comics. Like Def Jam, to me, in that sense, kind of changed the game with how you kind of can promote within your realm, if that makes sense. You know what
what's
I mean?
your target demographic? Yeah.
And like people didn't really do that before. You know what I mean?
No, I feel like during the 80s comedy boom, it was just like people traveling individually. Maybe they'd have an opener with them. And I think Def Jam was just like, let's treat it like a concert. Let's just get everyone, let's just get the best comics together. And then now you saw with the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, like they're touring almost like it's a music thing, you know?
Yeah,
and I think
Wasn't King of Comedy, isn't that like the first like kind of like touring thing with like the same group of guys like Cedric Entertainer, Steve Harvey,
at least on that level,
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I remember, I think the blue. I think there was it the Blue Collar.
Yeah,
Comedy
Blue Collar
Tour?
Comedy Tour. Yeah, sorry,
Right?
that comedy tour.
Yeah, that was-
same fucking thing.
yeah.
And then that like was like right afterwards, but kind of almost in the same time.
There was some
period.
overlap. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's great. So, what specials have you seen recently? Who have you gotten into recently?
I'm trying to think. The last special, I'm rewatching Dion Cole's special.
Oh my god, it's so good.
Yeah, I hung out with him. I was in the Zany's green room when he came to Nashville last. I was
So
in
you hung
there.
out with him? You can say,
Yeah,
you hung out
okay,
with him.
yeah. He won't remember.
counts,
like-
that counts.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah. So I've been rewatching his special and just like taking notes on it. The last special I watched, just beginning to end. I watched Seinfeld's. I remember watching that one at my girlfriend's
good.
house. That was maybe about a month or so ago. But the comics I'm really into now, Roy Wood Jr. I bought his special, and I guess I got like 10 minutes left on that. I'll watch that whenever I can. Roy Wood Jr. from Comedy Central. Andrew Schultz, like
Schultz, dude.
Xavier's big on him, yeah.
He's great.
What I love about him is that more than any other comic, he looks like he's having the most fun.
Oh, dude, he's like
I can see that.
Like it's amazing. Like you can tell he's, crafting his jokes and stuff, but he just seems like, oh, this is where I need to be right now in this moment, more than any other comic. And he really inspires me to like sit down and start writing. Whenever a comic makes me want to like stop laughing and go writing, that's
it's inspiring.
Yeah.
His podcasts are hilarious. I literally just started like listening to Too Flagrant. I think it's The Flagrant 2, I think. And then he has one with Charlamagne the God. He does one with.
Brilliant
and
Idiot,
those are really, really funny. I've been starting to get into those a lot.
You listen to a lot of comedy
always keeps it highly
podcasts?
controversial.
Not so much anymore.
Yeah.
Like if someone like if Roy Wood Jr. is being interviewed on it, I'll listen to him. I know like Joe Rogan. Well, his podcast is a little bit over. Does a lot of things, but like I know he's got one with Hannibal Buress.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, it just came out. So I'll listen to that one. If it's a comic that I follow. But as far as just comedy podcasts, I don't think I'm subscribed to any really.
Yeah, well, hey, this could be your first one.
I was gonna say, except for y'all, we get on y'all.
There you go. So tell us about, like you said, you've been at this grind for 4 years. Tell us about some of your best, like, headliner feature spots, coolest venues, best crowds. Give us some of that.
Oh, man. Okay, so I think, again, one of the best venues is Liquid Smoke, which is where we do our
comedy. It's a great comedy venue.
Yeah, you go in and the room is long. It's like that shotgun style.
Oh, yeah.
It just works really well.
Yeah, dude.
And it's the same folks coming out each month, and they're a good crowd. They have a lot of energy. Like they're, like they want to laugh, but they're not like an easy crowd where you can just say whatever.
Yeah,
and then they're not
sense.
obnoxious. Yeah. And so that's one. There's this one spot in where's Western Kentucky located? What's that town? Bowling Green.
Bowling Green, yeah.
It's this whiskey room. Like they don't sell food. They sell like whiskey drinks, and like 2 beers, like 2 different types of beer, and then that's it. But they've done a couple comedy shows. A friend of mine, Allie, in Kentucky, put together a couple comedy shows, and that crowd there is really good. The Bowling Green. Yeah, like you get in there, the room is like everyone's just on top of you. I mean, they don't have a kitchen, so there's all this space, and they just laughed. Like they laughed hard, and that's probably my best. I've done that show twice, and that's probably my best crowd, best performance.
See, and that's what I like about the Nashville area too. Is really like you said, like you can go on the road and go to Huntsville, go to Bowling Green, go to Memphis, go to Atlanta, and like Bowling Green's what, an hour and a half?
Yeah, not a far drive. I mean, it's a 1-night drive. You don't have to get a hotel or nothing. I mean, we stuck around after the show and still drove back that night and was fine. Like we could have hung out if we wanted to, you know what I mean? Like we could have
longer,
Yeah, so
that's like so we talked a little bit. So I did dabbled in stand up a little bit in college, and I was in Iowa City. So like really the only somewhat major city you could go to, Cedar Rapids was like 30 minutes away. They had a little local spot. Like other than that, man, like Des Moines was 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Chicago was 3, and again, like you said, like me getting a spot in Chicago wasn't happening.
Right.
It's just like, but it's like other than that, man, like you're going anywhere else, it's 5+ hours.
Davenport, Iowa.
That's
the Renwick Mansion in Davenport, Iowa.
Yeah, no, I'm actually, I drove through Davenport a lot. I used to stop in there a few times, actually. I know exactly where that's at.
Okay.
That's crazy, that. Yeah, I don't know, Cedar Rapids is okay, but like it's like you said about Asheville, it's like if you ever make it to a certain point in Iowa, like eventually you gotta go, and unfortunately it's a lot of times Chicago where again it's just very competitive. So
yeah,
it's hard. I actually got a good buddy of mine that moved out to Vegas, so he is a full-time comic out there now.
That's what's up.
probably did about 4 or 5 years. Yeah, his name's Tom Garland. He's awesome. He used to host the open mics that we used to do and was just awesome at it. I never really realized how good he was at hosting open mics until I saw some people that really sucked at hosting open mics. Like, I don't know, dude. He just he did like a really good job of doing bits in between sets, talking up comics and introducing them. And it's like you go to some open mics and people are just like, well, I'm all out of material, so here's your next comic. And it's like, they just go on ice cold. So
it's like, well, here you go.
like you and Matt hosting, it's always a good time.
You
guys hosting.
Yeah, you and Matt have like a really good banter too. So you guys obviously do a lot of shows. So who are some other like Nashville local comics that people should be listening to and that we should also have on this podcast?
Let's see. Brand Sativa is I'd say a big one, and I enjoy. He gave me my first paid show.
Oh, nice.
So
how'd that feel?
Great, man. Great. Yeah, it was just I just did a regular show. I didn't expect anything really, and then he went to shake my hand and gave me a $5 bill, and I still got that.
Hey, you hung on to it?
Put it on your wall like this is the
right, frame.
Brand Sativa. Who else?
Renard Hirsch is another one. To me, Renard Hirsch and Aaron Weber are two guys. What I like about them is they can do any crowd, black, white, clean, church crowd, dirty crowd, and
versatile.
Yeah, super versatile. So those guys. I like Taylor Williamson. She's really funny. She's a newer comic, but you can tell when she's on stage, she's having fun.
Yeah.
And kind of like the Andrew Schultz thing. Just seems to be having a lot of fun. Writes hard. They're good. Who's some others that do show? I don't know if she's still doing comedy right now because she's pregnant with a third kid. But Michael Wyman, she started a lot of shows. She and I started around the same time, and she produced several shows in Nashville. But I think she's probably taking a little bit of a comedy break. But she's done Smokes and Jokes several times, and she's very funny. Yeah, there's a handful, and I feel bad because I'm like, okay, I don't want to leave anyone out. The Good Job Boys.
There's a lot out there.
There's one I went to actually for like an assignment for school, and it was like we're like the oldest bar in Nashville. I think it was like West End area. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
And I went there.
Oh, the West Ender.
Yeah, it's like this.
I've heard of
it's like the diviest dive bar ever because it's like so old, but like it has some people up there that had me cracking up. Like I can't remember exact examples right now, but there's a bit about what if you ran into a Terminator, like some big like naked dude with like an accent, like giving you a clothes, like you think you're getting raped or something. I forgot what he said, but it was really funny.
That joke sounds
Does it sound familiar?
Yeah, but I don't know.
I can't remember exactly, but it was great. I was like, oh my god, it's so funny.
I'm drawing a blank on it, but the West Ender, that sounds familiar. I don't think it lasted very long. Like in terms of,
No, but it's like a super old bar. I don't know. I'll look it up one. I'll figure something out.
What are some old bits that you've done that I asked Matt this, and I think this is a funny thing to ask comics about. Of like, what's a bit that you've done before that hasn't really done well for you, but you think it's funny, so you've hung on to it anyway and just keep trying it and try to keep reworking it. Do you have any of those right now?
Yeah, well, there's one bit. It's just, I don't know what it is. Like, it's hit and miss, but it was this. I feel like I'm going to mess it up saying it because I hadn't said it in a while. But it was this bit about, like, how I was in love with this girl, but she was in a relationship with someone else. So I prayed for their relationship so God would see how unselfish I was and deliver her to me. And it didn't always, it didn't always land. And there would be things, I would try to add different tags to it. I'd say, I'd talk about how you can't use reverse psychology on the Lord. Like you can't, if you invented psychology, you can't.
Reverse psychology on God.
I had, so that bit, it seems like it should be stronger than it is, but for some reason, I don't know if the reversal, the unexpected part of the joke is that if it's too weird or too off from the premise, because I would talk about how in the joke I'd say, you ever pray for someone you pray for a couple and then they get married. You know, and then I kept praying for them, and then they had a kid, and I'm like, am I the one who's helping them? Like, am I? So
Well,
I
making
just,
stuff happen.
yeah, and so it was just, it seems like I worded it a couple times really the way it was supposed to, and it's gotten good laughs, but sometimes it just gets tepid laughter. So I'd say that was kind of
Yeah.
Keep working it.
yeah. I had gotten rid of that joke, and Matt was the one who kind of talked me into bringing it out of retirement. So I started doing it a while, and obviously it's been a while since I've told it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, like I
Yeah.
said, I feel like this kind of goes back to it, but like right now it's kind of hard because with everything closed down, it's hard to like get into a rhythm, and you're not testing jokes 4 or 5 times
No.
a week like you do it, like you said, like every couple of weeks. So I feel like it slows your pace down of like now you can't workshop it as much. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So-
I'm like visualizing, like I'm in my kitchen, saying it into my phone and trying to visualize a crowd, which is probably better than nothing, but it's still not as helpful as
You're not getting the reaction.
Yeah.
That's
No.
it, too.
No.
Did you see how they were trying to like? There's like, I don't know who exactly was trying to put this on, but they were trying to like live stream stand up, and I was like, that just sounds like the worst
Yes.
idea ever.
I've
Like,
actually seen a few people. Taylor Tomlinson. Do you listen to her? She
Yeah,
just
she's
had
great,
her latest special. I think we talked about Quarter Life Crisis on Netflix.
Yeah.
Dude, she's 25 and already has a special on Netflix, which first of all is crazy. She did a one. It's kind of like a
Streaming.
like reality show type setup where like she was on a stage and there was a bunch of cameras, like
With no-
maybe 100 TV cameras that was like Skyped in.
no camera, like
So-
no crowd that she could see.
Yeah, she could see them, they could see her, and they like laughed at her jokes in real time. And she said I didn't watch it. I don't know what the plot, but she made an Instagram post about it. Apparently, it went well.
She's a beast for sure.
Yeah,
so
she's
I
super
feel
funny.
like with her, she's so good that I feel like she could be, she could be really confident in her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on any platform, she's gonna do fine.
Right. Especially if she's worked it out to the point where she has enough for a special. I think if you're just doing 10 to 12 minutes,
Yeah.
I think you're going to be a little less confident.
Yeah.
I will say, Taylor Tomlinson, my favorite joke of 2019, that the bitch she has about saying like having a guy from Tinder put on a condom is like having a 5-year-old put a jacket over their Halloween costume. It's like so funny. No, you're gonna ruin it. Like, I love that.
No, dude, like I said,
no.
she's so. And the funny thing to me is, she's very open about like she battles a lot of anxiety and depression, as a lot of
Yeah.
comics do. But it's like crazy because again, it's like I don't know if she understands that like she's way ahead of the curve as far as like how much success she's having so young, and it's like
Oh, she
you're
knows.
gonna work the rest of your life.
She,
Like,
she's. I think 10 years from now, when she's 35, she'll have like right now she has like that 25-year-old audience, and then that audience is gonna follow her
Oh yeah, grow it there.
as she
yeah,
gets
yeah.
older. And that's what the top comics. That's what happens. Like the ones that hit it young, and then stick with stand up. Some of them go to movies and TV, and if she goes that route, then it might be a little different. But
Yeah.
she's definitely.
she's killing it, man.
Yeah, she's.
I enjoy that special a lot.
Well, I was gonna say too. I know Bert Kreischer's doing like a drive-in movie theater tour.
Yeah, he's doing it right now. I'm
They're
pretty
adding,
sure.
Yeah, they keep adding more shows, but he's
a good
doing
idea.
it. I think they have like big time production companies come into like small local drive-in movie theaters. They set up all the shit. I think he's up on stage, and again, I haven't seen any video. But yeah, I mean, people like just going to the drive-in, like they tune in on their FM radio or whatever.
Yeah, he's got a whole crew. He's got a crew with him too. I think like 2 other guys who are doing it with him.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
That's
So
cool.
it's-
He's,
yeah,
he's
we
ridiculous, dude.
followed Two Bears, One Cave. His podcast with Tom Segura.
Dude, it is.
Yeah.
If you don't subscribe to that, you absolutely should.
Just check out the episode, but they like.
They're like Tom Segura just tries to get Bert Kreischer to say the most.
He doesn't even have to try.
but he doesn't have
He like definitely like leads him to where he's gonna end up going anyway. And then Bert Kreischer's like, I'm convinced he's like 22 years old, just stuck in his body. He just
no.
he just says the most ridiculous stuff. There's this thing he was like, if you're a grown ass man, you eat ice cream, something's wrong with you. He's like, what? He's like, that's not a meal, bro. He's like, get some pizza, dude.
That's hilarious. No,
Tom Segura's like, dude, that's just unhealthy. If not even, maybe just like even more unhealthy. He's like, nah, dude. People don't eat ice cream for dinner, dude. I'm
This is the
like,
same episode he talks about drinking a gallon of Kool-Aid a day.
dude, I was in tears. Tears, dude.
So I do want to talk. We'll take a break here soon for the Instagram live video, but before we get into that, we kind of got sidetracked talking into comedy. I do that sometimes, but I do want to. While you're in here, man, again, we kind of talked about this off mic, just kind of about the current situation of the country, not just with the COVID thing, but with the country's response to the George Floyd situation. With the protests, not only here in Nashville, not only in the U.S.,
riots
but
we had
globally.
going on.
So, just wanted to get your thoughts and perspective, man. I know it's kind of a crazy situation, but yeah, just wanted your thoughts on it, man.
Yeah, man. Well, my girlfriend and I, we went to, because there were 2 protests in Nashville that were, I guess, major in terms of their size. Like, we went to the first one, and the one where they ended up doing stuff with the police station, and we went to that one. And I don't think what people understand about protest is that it's a very scheduled event. It's like, okay, 3 to 5. And a lot of the things that you see that happen that's crazy, it's usually after that 5 o'clock.
People start showing up, and then nighttime things start going off.
Yeah, well, and the thing that's interesting is that there are people there who are like, listen, I want to voice my support for a movement or voice my displeasure, but they're not really trying to, get in trouble or anything. And then there are people who are there who, maybe want to stir things up a little bit. And then, there are people who are just kind of there. They're like, I'm just going to stick around as long as possible. I will say, we were marching and we went up Broadway. And I remember, there were some people there, who were in some of the bars, and they kind of, came out on the street and, to look at us. And you could see some of them, laughing or, smirking at us. And then there's, one bar that was, playing their music as loud as possible to try to drown us out. And I remember thinking at one point, if you show that you're not taking people seriously, I remember thinking, I feel like this is when, people start to maybe get a little violent or react. If I'm speaking and then you're laughing while I'm speaking and not in a good way, I might, to try to get your attention, do something over the top. And I remember thinking that, but then it wasn't until me and my girlfriend, we got into our car and then we heard that some things had started to happen, that I put those two, things together. But I feel like it's something that I think it happens every few years. I remember the Rodney King, those riots, and it's interesting now because I thought, man, there's no way this is going to happen again, and then it just seems like every few years, it's like I think we as just culturally kind of have to be reminded of things, and it's like that individually too, it's like every few years, I got to be reminded not to eat McDonald's.
A lot of people are so easily distracted.
And so I think
people are so easily distracted too. So yeah, it's like, especially in this country, people pay attention to all sorts of different things, but then a real societal issue pops up again. It's like, hey, we need to all spread this information, and people need to be aware. Yep. It is kind of wild, things kind of repeat themselves, but it's like, I don't know, it's complicated.
It is complicated because it's not as simple as good guys versus bad guys, and it's not as simple as these people over here all believe the same thing, and these people over here all believe the same thing. There are different people with different motives and different beliefs, and it can be hard to talk about a group of people in an effective way when that group doesn't all think the same way or believe the same way. They're just on the same side of the fence. Does that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
and it's hard because I think a lot of what's happened in the country over the last 10, 20 years is that's where it's gone. It's like it's divided. It's you only have 2 options. You're either on this side or this side, and it's like, hey, that's not necessarily true for most people. We all don't 100% agree one way or the other. Most of us fall on just about every issue somewhere in the middle. I think it's interesting. The response has been crazy. Do you think that this situation will bring on more change than other situations have and other protests have?
Yeah, I think because I think sometimes when we say change, it's sort of like a vague thing. But I was listening to a podcast, the Bill Simmons pod, and he had DeRay McKesson on there, who was one of the people who started Black Lives Matter, and he was like, "These are the 8 things that we want to change." And I think when you have specific things instead of just this general things need to change, what things change in what way, that could be. But when you say we would like to see these 8 things happen, even if all 8 doesn't happen, at least if there's a specific,
Yeah,
because
it thinks like years.
and
you know?
and I think, I think cops, they do have a hard job, and they probably have to do a lot more than they should have had to do when they signed up to be cops. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think part of when people say defund the police is like, hey, we're trying to make it so you don't have to go to every domestic violence call. Like that shouldn't be your job as a cop. There should be maybe other people who get money from the state who go instead. Maybe you have a social worker if it's a repeated thing, as opposed to someone with a gun having to show up every time. If a little kid in an elementary school, instead of having to call the cops, you may call this other group of people who are trained
Depending
in a different way.
How hard the situation is.
Yeah, and I think that's
makes sense, yeah.
and so I think when you talk about it in those terms, it's like, okay, instead of it sounding like, oh, we're trying to get rid of police and let everyone. No, but if you're saying, listen, maybe make your job a little bit easier so you're not having to do, people don't know what to do, so they just call 911, and it's a conflict that could have been solved in
a different way.
That's like you say, I mean, sometimes an armed police officer isn't the best person to handle. You've got a domestic dispute between a couple. They're pissed at each other. They're getting physical. Now you've got a cop that shows up with a gun. Like, that doesn't necessarily make people calm down.
Right,
And then someone has to go to jail, too, a lot of situations.
Yeah,
It's like they call the cops during, like, a domestic situation between wife and husband. And it's like, all right, well, I'm here, so someone has to go to jail. And that gets real, like...
Yeah.
That gets real weird sometimes. It's like, man... I don't know. It all depends on the situation, though.
Yeah, it seems like and different counties and different cities have different rules, and like I didn't know that the code of conduct in different cities, like, I mean, it's probably very similar, but they vary from precinct to precinct. And I didn't know that, like, in certain places you have to hire a lawyer in order to get a copy of the code of conduct. Like, the code of conduct includes things like a list of things that an officer can kill you for. But like, why should I have to hire a lawyer to get a copy of that? Like, that should be something that you would want to give.
That's real crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You'd want to be transparent about those things.
Right.
You would think.
And so I think I think changes like that, those seem fine to me. Like,
well, I think too. I was thinking about kind of like you said, like thinking back to the Occupy Wall Street protest.
I remember those. Yeah.
I think that was kind of the big. I don't want to say controversy, but like kind of knock to it is like they didn't necessarily have things that they wanted to change. They were just like, we're the 99% versus the 1%. It's like, okay, but like
the
what
hell
do you
changed,
get? But it's like,
but the plan for it's
well,
like
they go talk to the protesters, and one person wants this, one person wants it, and then it's like we're talking about 18 different issues here. Like, let's get like you said, more specific about what systematically needs to change. So.
Yeah,
it was like the whole monopoly of a lot of like companies have, and it's just like, oh, this isn't fair on a grand scale, and that's kind of what that was about. And I don't remember exactly what it was exactly called, but do you remember when they were trying to basically like censor the internet? Like, all right, pretty much take away your freedom of speech,
like the net neutrality stuff.
Yeah, and that was like another thing that was real big, and it kind of just disappeared. A lot of people have forgotten about it. Like I literally had just forgotten the name of it.
Yeah,
but I remember it for sure.
Yeah, was that like 3 years ago?
Yeah,
3-4 years ago maybe. Yeah, so I mean, I think, and going back to what you were saying about, you guys are protesting, people laughing at, like, I think the thing that people forget a lot of times is people don't just decide to protest for fun. Like, protest is something that happens as a result to people feeling that their voice isn't being heard.
It is not, like, protesting is not fun. Like, it is, because my girlfriend who has done way more protesting in her life than I have. Like, she talks about, she's like, it's a hassle. Like, she's like, no, I don't want to give up my Saturday to go and do this. Like, it's, because, I mean, you're basically ruining your day. And there's always this sense of nervousness in the back of your mind because things can go left. And there's also, too, this sense of nervousness where you might show up thinking it's going to be a big protest, and it's like 10 of y'all.
Yeah.
And then you look like idiots almost, like just like 10 of y'all marching through the street.
It's kind of like showing up at an open mic.
Yeah, it is.
There's like 6 people there. Fuck.
That's how it is. Yeah.
5 of them are comics.
That's a good one. Yeah, because it is. There's but that's how it is though. It's like, because she says, like the protests we've been to together, she's like, I don't know if this is gonna be a big thing or a little thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what to expect, but yeah, it's not an enjoyable thing. I mean, I think that there are people who maybe get more of a sense of purpose out of it, so that they're there no matter what. But for the average person, I think most of us would rather be hanging out, just having fun. But it's like, if you feel like there is a need to voice your point of view, sometimes you have to forego what you want to do and
we'd all rather live in a world where you don't have things to be pissed off about to go protest.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And I think as a white person, like, that's where I think the white communities, at least that's where I'm at, is it's just like you talking about the Rodney King thing. I mean, that was 28 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's like watching that George Floyd video. It's like, dude, this is 2020. Like, we shouldn't still be having this conversation.
That's like one of the ones that's been,
Yeah.
that's available for people to see everywhere. Insane things happen literally for decades, but now people getting to see it, and it was like recorded and put out immediately. That puts it on the forefront where people really get to see and feel.
See, and that was my thing. It's like, as a
Feel this,
cop,
and it's like,
as a cop in today's society, how do you not know that every single person
Dude, some people
has
just-
a video camera that they can instantly stream live to and broadcast to the internet? It's not going to be edited. It's not going to be cut out. Whatever happens,
some get away with so much stuff. They're like, you know what, like,
God,
I'm
it's
a
just
cop, I do what I
man,
want.
Have a fucking brain. It's crazy.
Yeah, have some,
I would
some
think-
real emotion, some empathy,
some sympathy, but
Yeah, I think the idea, like the fact that that people are videoing you, it just seems like that would alter your behavior. But
It's like, for me, it's like if you knew that you were on a reality TV show all the time.
yeah,
Like,
that's a good.
you would think you'd act, and like, that's just how I feel about a cop. Is like, I don't even care how you feel about the issue, man. The reality is somebody's watching you at all times. Even when you don't think somebody's watching you, you might have somebody. Dude, I go look at cops all the time. When they pull somebody over, they don't know that I'm watching them, but I just, you know what I mean? And that shit happens to them all the time. And it's just like, I don't know, man. There's like a certain level of accountability that like they have to have on themselves to know that, like, dude, 40 years ago, you could get away with this shit.
Yeah.
Today, it's like completely unacceptable. Like, you just can't fucking
It's unacceptable then too, but it's just like now there's more eyes than ever. So you need to hold yourself up to a higher standard for multiple reasons.
Same thing with comedy.
You remember that one thing the thing Chris Rock said about like, hey, you can't have some pilots who fly for an airline like, most of our pilots are pretty good. Some crash sometimes. It's like, no, you all gotta land the plane.
Right.
It's the same thing with
You
comedy.
You
can't
can't have no bad apples. Yeah.
What they were talking about 40 years ago wouldn't be, not that it was acceptable to say then, but it's like if somebody went on stage today and did a Eddie Murphy bit where he says the F word, 20 times, like, that would be horribly unacceptable. And it just, like I said, man, it kills me, and not to even identify with what's going on, but like, it's just like, fuck, man, how is this still happening?
Have you ever seen the movie 13?
no,
The documentary?
Yeah,
It's-
I saw it.
It's about the 13th Amendment.
Dude, Brian,
And-
it's
Yes,
on
on
Netflix.
Netflix. Yeah, I think I have seen that. Yes.
It's well, we watched it in class actually a couple
About
years
mass
ago.
incarceration, yeah?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did see that.
To me, that's an interesting. That was an eye-opening documentary because, and I know that there's there's Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, which talks about it in her book, but the movie was interesting, and that you see these like videos of people, and it's like the same thing. It's just in black and white, and you hear some of the interviews people are giving and the reasons, and it's the same thing except it's 40 years ago, 50 years ago, and I wonder if like each generation just has to again just relearn the lessons of the past, and that's just something that
Human beings have to do or something.
Yeah, and this is a very highly emotional issue, so it's very obvious, but I wonder if we do it in all these other areas as well, where we just kind of have to, I forget who said it. I think it was Toni Morrison. She says, we spend all of our time getting all this wisdom just so that the next generation can ignore it. And it's just, and I wonder if that's just kind of how it is. Like Generation Z is going to go through the same things that Generation X went through, and millennials are going to go through the same things that boomers went through, but just in a different way.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a little bit of that. So
that's why we're doing this podcast, man. We're hoping to be a voice to the youth, to not fuck it up.
Hand things off a little bit. Yeah.
Maybe
dude,
eons and eons from now.
But let's take a quick break. Like I said, Nick, I want to talk to you when we come back about just kind of what you have planned coming up, and we'll hit the Instagram live here in a second. But let's take a quick ad break, pay some bills, baby.
All right.
All right, guys, we're back. We had to pay all this. We always apologize to all of our listeners. We know those ads take 8 minutes, but guys, again, when you start seeing the paychecks, there's some of these sponsors.
You gotta keep them coming.
True.
So we appreciate you guys' patience. We're back. We're on Instagram Live. Make sure you go follow us on Instagram at Millennialistic Pod and turn your notifications on so you can see when we go live and you can tune in.
Follow
You'll
us.
get a tease of the episode before it drops. So we're here, episode 15 of Millennialistic with our host, or with
Nick
our host,
Bush.
with our guest Nick Bush.
Yeah.
Unless I get fucking fired.
I'm fine.
That's whatever. That's whatever at this point.
But no, we've had an awesome time with you today, Nick. Dude, I appreciate you really coming in today. Got a chance to kind of catch up on your comedy career. Got a chance to talk about just local Nashville comics and the scene.
Yeah.
Talk about the George Floyd situation, and we really appreciate just your thoughts and opinions on that, man. What's kind of next for you in your comedy career?
Just keep grinding. I think a lot of my goals for 2020 have been kind of rearranged. They had to be.
Oh yeah, like most people, yeah.
Right. Now our next show is it's an outdoor show at an undisclosed location. You can DM at Millennialistic Podcast for more information.
Ah, nice.
So you can do it that way. But that show is going to be on Monday, the 20th. Monday, July 20th. New outdoor show at an undisclosed location, limited tickets. That's the next thing, and I think it's our Smokes and Jokes show. What's going on with
and my
Falcor?
dog joined us here for the time being.
Liking it. He wants to go to the show.
It's his cow. Yeah, dude. I'll bring him out.
Yeah.
Can you bring dogs to the location
I don't see why not.
if it's an outdoor venue?
Yeah, it's an outdoor venue, so it almost gave something.
Yeah, don't
away.
say it.
But
Don't say it.
you can.
We're not bringing it in here.
Yeah.
We're not bringing it in here.
Yeah, but I think that Smokes and Jokes, it seems like for the foreseeable future, is the only thing I'm going to be doing comedy-wise. Me and Matt Taylor putting that together, but I'm still writing, I'm still practicing at home, so I won't be too unwarmed up once things start back. So
Yeah,
Get some
very good.
normalcy.
And you guys do smoking jokes on a monthly basis?
Every month,
When you
yeah.
can? Yeah. So usually it's the second?
it's usually the second Monday of every month. This month it'll be the third.
Yeah.
Just whenever we can secure the venue, because it's not at Liquid Smoke, right now.
Yes.
So we're sort of working with the venue each month, and they've been really great.
Is the start time for the show going to stay the same? 8:30, somewhere in that ballpark?
Start time's at 8:30. Folks usually show up around 8. Get a couple
Yeah.
drinks, but we should have things rolling by 7:30. Like in terms of doors opening and people wanting to.
Something else you get there.
Yeah, but we expect to get the show started at 8:30. It'll end usually a little before 10.
Yeah.
So 75 minutes is the sweet spot for comedy. You don't want to go over 90 for sure, and we'll keep it there. So
Now you co-host
Yeah,
that show with Matt Taylor, right?
right, cool, yeah.
Can you, and again, we don't want to disclose any information to
Yeah,
you, not here. Can you tell us anybody that's on the lineup for that night?
Yeah, we've got all Nashville comics. Usually we try to have a couple of out of town guests, but because of everything,
Yeah.
Brian Bates, who tours a lot with Nate Bargatze, is he's going to be our headliner.
Nice.
And Aaron Weber is they're sort of co-headlining. Aaron Weber, who's also a successful touring Nashville comic, he's also going to be performing. So we've got those two. Ashley Corby, who's an OG of Nashville comedy, she'll be there. Peter Depp is another comic, and then me and Matt. And then we'll have at least one pop-in guest, and maybe one other pop-in guest who isn't on the schedule but might just show up and bless us with a few minutes. So,
very good. So July 20th.
July 20th, 8:30.
Yeah, please message
Monday
us on
after
Instagram
next.
if you want more information. They can follow. You guys have a Facebook page for the Smoking Jokes as well.
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah, at Smokes and Jokes, and then also Liquid Smoke. The venue that we normally have it at. Give them a follow as well, and. We do a good job of promoting it. So
yeah, no, we were talking on this episode actually, so make sure you download and subscribe to the episode. We talked about it was a great venue for comedy, but we're glad that you guys are able to stay very flexible and find a venue to still make it happen and provide some live entertainment to people that we desperately need it.
Yeah, people
we're
missing out.
thirsty for it. We're thirsty for it. So,
sure.
Nick, where can people follow you on social media?
Instagram and Twitter is at NickXBush. That's at NickXBush. If you follow me, I'll follow you back. Don't be a bot. And
Yeah,
and then Facebook, it's Nick Bush. If you follow, you send a friend request, I'll accept.
We'll provide some links for everybody too.
Yeah,
Make sure they can
definitely.
actually.
Links in the bio there. Well, Nick, man, we again really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you. Yeah.
We know it's kind of crazy with all the COVID stuff, and like I
much
said,
appreciated. Thanks,
we appreciate
man.
you coming out, man, taking time out of your Sunday afternoon to come kick it with us. So, Babs, you can go ahead and cut it, guys. This has been episode 15 of Millennialistic. Again, shout out to Nick Bush. Please,
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all, man.
go
Appreciate
like,
y'all.
subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, anywhere you listen to your podcast. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts.
Okay,
too. That helps
YouTube
the
also.
show. Yep, been looking for the YouTube video here in a couple of days. Follow us on Facebook at Millennialistic Pod, Instagram at Millennialistic Pod. I'm pretty sure that's it. What am I missing, guys? Anything?
No, I think that's about it.
Got it.
Well, Nick, thank you again, man.
Thanks,
and thank
man.
you guys for listening. We love you guys. Peace
Love
out.
you. Bye.
So.